If a child today were to step into a grocery store from decades ago, they would be genuinely astonished by how different it felt. Shopping back then carried a sense of human warmth and everyday rituals that have now completely disappeared. Those quiet, familiar comforts faded away as technology advanced. And here are the things you simply won't see anymore in modern grocery stores. Arrival and the parking lot. The journey to the grocery store began the moment you took the wheel of a land yacht, that proud, quintessentially American nickname for the massive, gleaming behemoths of the 1960s and 70s. These weren't just cars, they were elongated blocks of heavy steel and shimmering chrome, and maneuvering them into a bustling, crowded parking lot was a genuine test of both a driver's patience and their technical skill. In those days, the parking lot served as both a practical space and a vibrant stage for the era's iconic Chevys and Fords. The air was thick with the low, guttural rumble of powerful engines and the heavy, unmistakable scent of gasoline, a sensory overture that signaled the official start of the weekly shopping trip. Every driver entered the lot with a singular, cherished goal: securing the most prime parking spot. This ideal location had to be close enough to the main entrance to make lugging heavy bags manageable, yet spacious enough to allow those wide doors to swing open without a struggle. You operated with extreme caution, constantly on guard to ensure a neighbor's door wouldn't swing out and ding your precious polished paint, leaving behind an unsightly scratch. Backing one of these massive steel giants into a narrow space without the aid of modern sensors or cameras was a true art form requiring a keen eye and a steady hand. Upon finally parking, you'd often pause to straighten your clothes and take a deep, refreshing breath of outdoor air before walking through the automatic doors and into the colorful world waiting inside. That small flash of triumph upon finding the perfect spot was the first little joy in a complete shopping experience. Smoking inside the store. In the vivid gallery of memories from those bygone years, few sights were as commonplace as a dapper gentleman or housewife leisurely pushing a metal cart with a cigarette resting naturally between their lips. During that era, enjoying the flavor of tobacco in a public space was never viewed as an act of rudeness or a breach of etiquette. Instead, it was an accepted thread in the fabric of a relaxed, unhurried shopping atmosphere. Stores catered to this habit by placing large, substantial ashtrays, often filled with fine white sand, discreetly at the end of nearly every grocery aisle. These stations became social hubs where neighbors would pause for a moment to flick away their ash and exchange brief, friendly pleasantries about the local weather or the latest family news. And of course, the deep focus required to check off a long grocery list sometimes led to a stray cigarette butt accidentally falling to the floor. It wasn't uncommon for the rhythmic rolling of a metal shopping cart to come to a sudden, jarring halt as a wheel snagged on a crushed butt underfoot. The lasting legacy of this habit was etched into the store itself. Small, characteristic brown scorch marks that became permanent fixtures on the otherwise pristine white vinyl floor tiles. The visual of a faint blue haze of smoke drifting through the air, mingling with the crisp scent of fresh produce and the intoxicating aroma of warm baked goods, created a sensory profile that only those who lived through the era can truly recall. It was a time when the grocery store felt less like a warehouse and more like a communal living room. The cereal aisle and kids' behavior. The cereal aisle was often described as a high-stakes psychological battlefield, a place where intense, dramatic negotiations played out between parents and their children. As manufacturers of the era were master tacticians, utilizing vibrant, eye-catching cartoon characters on every box to instantly hook the attention of the store's youngest visitors. A child's gaze was almost always locked onto those colorful boxes, which were strategically placed at their exact eye level to maximize temptation. But the true siren call wasn't just the sugary flakes, it was the prize inside. Those small, hidden treasures like plastic rings or shiny stickers buried deep beneath the crunchy layers. To a child, possessing the specific box containing their favorite toy felt like discovering a chest of real gold. However, those heartfelt pleas were not always met with a yes from mom or dad. Consequently, this aisle frequently became the stage for dramatic sobbing fits and full-blown tantrums right in the middle of the floor when a request was denied. These outbursts were usually followed by a firm, quiet, but undeniable reprimand from a parent, leading to the familiar sight of a teary-eyed child with a red nose, looking quite regretful for the scene they had just caused in the corner of the store. While these interactions were undeniably noisy and sometimes stressful, they now stand as vivid, living memories of the complex process of growing up. Were you ever that kid who caused a scene in the cereal aisle just because of a free toy? Share your most unforgettable memory in the comments below. Glass containers and resourcefulness. Think back to the substantial weight of a shopping basket in the days before plastic came to dominate every facet of our lives. During that time, everything from rich, thick tomato ketchup and zesty mustard to creamy, decadent mayonnaise was packaged in heavy, sturdy glass jars. There was a distinct tactile quality to holding a glass ketchup bottle. You had to learn the patient ritual of tapping the bottom of the bottle just right to get the slow-moving sauce to flow, creating a rhythmic sound as it hit your plate. Once the contents were finished, these jars weren't simply tossed into the trash as waste like they are today. Instead, they began a fascinating and useful second life. The legendary resourcefulness of the era's housewives transformed these glass containers into essential household tools. After being thoroughly washed and having their paper labels carefully peeled away, they were repurposed into a variety of roles. They became the primary organizers for Dad's collection of nails, bolts, and screws in the workshop or shed, or they were promoted to the kitchen shelf to hold Mom's various dry spices and herbs. This was a time when the value of an object was respected to the fullest extent. A time when creativity was born from the most ordinary, everyday items. Unique displays and in-store services. As you wandered through the store's aisles, your eyes were inevitably drawn to creative product displays that are nearly impossible to find in the modern era. One of the most iconic images was the Legs pantyhose display, a rotating, futuristic-looking cylinder that held hundreds of brightly colored plastic eggs. For women, selecting an egg in a favorite shade turned a routine chore into a small, engaging experience, transforming a basic household item into a moment of minor joy. Nearby, the seafood counter was often the most popular stop for families, thanks to the live lobster tanks. Children would enthusiastically press their faces against the cool, bubbling glass, mesmerized by the sight of the large crustaceans with their rubber-banded claws, creating a miniature aquarium experience right in the heart of the grocery store. Another deeply personalized feature was the self-serve coffee station, where a rich, intoxicating aroma would waft through the entire store. Customers in those days had the special privilege of hand-selecting premium coffee beans from large open bins before using the store's mechanical grinder for free to achieve their desired fineness. The low, steady hum of the grinder, combined with the fresh fragrance of newly crushed beans, was enough to make anyone want to linger just a few minutes longer. These rich sensory experiences built a profound connection between the shopper and the products they bought, making going to the store an exploratory journey rather than a sterile transaction. Shopping carts and store employees. The shopping carts of decades past were tall, formidable structures built from gleaming, durable steel wires that felt like they could last a lifetime. One of their most beloved features was the large bottom rack, a space where parents would often let their children sit for a ride. To a child, being tucked away in that low spot and watching the world roll by from beneath towers of groceries was a thrilling adventure. The rhythmic metallic rattle of those wheels against the floor became the soundtrack of the family's progress through the various departments. However, the true soul of the old-school grocery store was the staff, who always appeared impeccably groomed and projected a professional yet genuinely warm attitude. It was common to see the store manager walking the floor in a dapper, well-fitted suit, or the local butcher in a crisp white apron, always ready to offer expert advice on the best cut of beef for your family's Sunday dinner. The relationship between the staff and the shoppers was rooted in mutual trust and genuine respect. Employees often memorized the names of their regulars and never failed to offer a polite, sincere greeting upon their arrival. This interaction created a cozy, family-like atmosphere where you felt like a welcomed guest rather than just another customer number. Once you finished at the register, baggers would meticulously pack your items and often ask if you needed assistance carrying them to your car. This level of personal dedication is a rare find in today's world of automated checkouts and hurried, impersonal service. If this trip down memory lane felt familiar, press hype. It helps us keep telling the stories we all grew up with. S&H Green Stamps. For several decades, the act of collecting S&H Green Stamps was a foundational element of a family's household economy. This was a charming and highly effective loyalty program where every grocery receipt was converted into a set of small, iconic green stamps. After a shopping trip, it was a common ritual for the whole family to gather around the kitchen table to perform a task that required both patience and precision. Licking the back of each individual stamp and carefully pasting them into a collection booklet. Children often took great pride in participating in this job, viewing it as a meaningful and productive puzzle that they were helping to solve. Once the family had filled enough booklets, they would spend hours together poring over the thick, exciting S&H Idea Book catalog, which was packed with thousands of tempting rewards. From gleaming new kitchen appliances and modern toasters to high-quality furniture and toys for the kids, almost anything could be bought without spending a single extra cent of cash. A trip to the S&H Redemption Center was always treated as a major family event, filled with the same kind of excitement as receiving an unexpected gift. This system not only encouraged brand loyalty, but also fostered a healthy habit of saving and working toward a goal. It gave people of that era a shared objective, making every penny spent feel like it had a little extra value. Promotional household items. The practical, community-oriented spirit of the old days was perhaps most evident in the incredibly generous promotional programs offered by major brands. You likely still remember the thrill of opening a large, heavy box of laundry detergent from brands like Duz or Breeze and finding a sparkling glass tumbler, or a soft, new hand towel tucked right inside the powder. These weren't cheap, flimsy giveaways. They were sincere tokens of appreciation for loyal customers. Remarkably, the quality of these freebies was so high with thick glass and durable fabric that they could withstand daily use for decades. Many families during that time managed to accumulate entire sets of matching glassware in various colors and patterns simply by doing their regular weekly shopping. Another classic example of the era's thrifty and creative spirit was the Welch's jelly jar. Rather than using a generic, disposable container, Welch's cleverly designed their glass jars to function as decorative drinking glasses once the jelly was gone. After the family had enjoyed the last of the sweet fruit spread, the paper label was soaked off, and the jar was immediately promoted to the dinner table. These recycled glasses were the perfect size for a child's hand, often used for afternoon juice or a glass of milk at dinner. This practice gave packaging a valuable second life, helping families reduce the cost of outfitting their kitchens while adding a touch of charm to their tables. Cigarette machines and milk. In the front lobbies or near the entrances of most vintage grocery stores, you would almost always find a large, imposing cigarette vending machine made of heavy metal and finished with wood grain. These machines were marvels of simple mechanical engineering. You dropped in your coins, pulled a heavy spring-loaded metal lever, and your chosen pack of cigarettes would drop into the tray with a solid thud. What is most striking to a modern observer is the level of community trust that existed back then. These machines operated without any ID checks or high-tech supervision. They were simply an accepted part of the social landscape, a place where adults could exercise their personal choices responsibly within a shared public space. Moving to the dairy section, the milk packaging of the time also carried a deeply human and social touch. Instead of the plastic jugs with integrated handles we use today, milk was sold in square paper cartons that required a bit of manual dexterity to pinch and pull the top into a pouring spout. Most significantly, the sides of these cartons were often used as a platform for social good, featuring the photos and vital statistics of missing children. Every morning, as families gathered around the breakfast table, those black and white photos served as a poignant plea for community help. This practice reflected a deep spirit of solidarity and a commitment from businesses to help maintain social safety, turning every carton of milk into a potential tool for bringing a lost child home. Does your family still have any items left over from old promotional giveaways? Name it in the comments so we can reminisce together. Barrels and bulk items. Stepping into an old-fashioned grocery store meant your senses were immediately greeted by the rustic, earthy sight of large wooden barrels lining the aisles. This was a far cry from today's world of rigid, sterile plastic packaging. Back then, goods like dried nuts, various beans, and raw, aromatic spices were often displayed in these open barrels, inviting a closer look. One of the most unforgettable sensory memories is the sight and smell of barrels filled with whole pickles floating in a fragrant, vinegary brine. Customers could personally select the biggest, firmest pickle from the bunch and drop it into a simple paper bag, creating a direct and tactile connection with their food. The combination of natural wood and the raw scents of the products fostered a deep sense of trust and a feeling that the items were of the highest quality. However, the most anticipated stop for shoppers of all ages was the Brock's Pick-a-Mix candy counter. With just a single nickel in your pocket, you could feel like you were the master of a sweet, sugary treasure trove. Children would stand in rapt silence before the vibrant trays of caramels, fruit chews, and hard candies that shimmered like little jewels. There was a unique thrill in taking the small metal scoop, filling your paper bag with your personal favorites, and then watching with bated breath as the clerk weighed the haul. The freedom to choose exactly what you wanted at such an affordable price made the joys of childhood feel accessible and complete. Those wooden barrels and candy bins were the very heart and soul of the store, making it a place of lived experience rather than just a place of commerce. The soda aisle and recycling. The soda aisle of decades past was a gleaming world of glass and metal, a place where the lightweight, environmentally harmful plastic bottles of today were nowhere to be found. Walking through this section, you were serenaded by the musical clink of glass bottles, bumping against each other as customers made their selections. Soda typically came in sturdy cardboard carriers of 6 or 12 bottles, and even the aluminum cans of that era felt significantly thicker and more substantial than the flimsy ones we use today. There was something uniquely satisfying about using a metal church key opener to pop a bottle cap, followed by that sharp, refreshing hiss of carbonation, a sound that always seemed to signal a backyard birthday party or a family picnic was about to begin. Deeply woven into the culture of the soda aisle was the bottle deposit and return system, a highly effective environmental practice that existed long before going green. Was a popular catchphrase. When you bought a bottle of soda, you paid a small deposit, usually just a few cents. After the soda was finished, it was common practice to collect the empties in their cardboard crates and bring them back to the store on your next trip to reclaim your deposit. For neighborhood kids, searching for discarded bottles was a fantastic way to earn a little extra pocket money. This circular process happened naturally and was fueled by a sense of community responsibility, showing a high level of respect for both the neighborhood and the natural world. Packaging quality and price marking. When you picked up a product from the shelf in those days, you could immediately feel the difference in the sheer durability of the packaging. Manufacturers focused on preserving flavor and freshness above all else, rather than looking for ways to shave pennies off production cost. A prime example was the legendary Hostess Ding Dong. Each individual chocolate cake was lovingly hand-wrapped in a layer of shiny silver foil. There was a tactile satisfaction in running your fingers over that foil, hearing it crinkle and slowly peeling it back to reveal the smooth chocolate coating. Similarly, Folgers coffee tins were built so well that they almost always found a second career in Dad's garage, serving as a permanent, rust-proof home for organized nuts, bolts, and hardware for years to come. Another familiar sight that has vanished into history is the process of manual price marking. Before the era of universal barcodes and laser scanners, store employees used mechanical price guns that created a rhythmic click-clack sound that echoed through the aisles as they worked. Every single item, from a box of cereal to a can of soup, had its own small white or yellow sticker, with the price clearly printed on it. This provided a massive convenience for housewives trying to manage a strict family budget. You could pick up an item, look directly at its price, and do the mental math of your total spending right then and there, without having to hunt for a shelf tag or squint at a digital screen. If you still remember the sound of the price gun or the feeling of peeling back the foil on packaged pastries, share that memory with me in the comments below. Iconic items: Nestle Quick and colored toilet paper. In the collective memory of children from that era, few things were as iconic as the bright yellow Nestle Quick tin sitting prominently on the kitchen shelf. This wasn't just a product, it was a symbol of energetic mornings and those long, lazy afternoons spent with a cold glass of chocolate milk. The tin itself featured a unique design with a lid pressed so firmly into the rim that a child's small hands couldn't hope to pry it open alone. The standard solution was to run to the kitchen drawer for a sturdy metal spoon to use as a lever, wedging it into the tiny gap and popping the lid off with a satisfying thwack. Because they were so durable, these tins were almost always saved once they were empty, serving for years as containers for homemade cookies or a child's secret stash of toys. Beyond the kitchen, another detail that showcased the aesthetic care of the time was the presence of colored toilet paper. Today, we are accustomed to the industrial uniformity of plain white paper, but in the 1960s and 70s, toilet paper was considered a legitimate part of a home's interior decor. Housewives would spend time carefully selecting a roll whose color perfectly matched the primary tones of the bathroom's wall tiles or the family's towels. Soft pinks, light blues, and sunny lemon yellows helped transform a purely functional space into one that felt coordinated, cozy, and stylish. Dress code and social norms. Going to the grocery store in previous decades was viewed as more than just a chore. It was a social event where people demonstrated respect for themselves and their neighbors through their appearance. The moment you entered, you would notice the impeccable grooming of the store's staff. Male cashiers and stockers were expected to wear neatly pressed shirts, usually accompanied by a tie tucked tidily under their collar. This commitment to a sharp appearance created an atmosphere of professionalism and high standards, giving customers the feeling that they were being served in a place of integrity and trust. On the other side of the counter, customers followed their own unspoken rules of neatness. It was incredibly rare to see someone wandering the aisles in pajamas or messy workout gear, as is often the case in modern supermarkets. Men typically wore their shirts tucked in, while women opted for modest, sensible dresses or pressed slacks. Perhaps the most iconic image of the era's social norms was the sight of a woman doing her early morning shopping with hair rollers still in place, though they were always cleverly and modestly hidden beneath a thin silk scarf. This was her way of preparing to look her absolute best for an evening event or a special dinner, reflecting a lifestyle of discipline and a high degree of respect for the public spaces they shared. The store entrance and kids' attraction. From the very moment you approached the building, the storefront of a vintage grocery store felt alive and full of color. The large front windows were often covered in bright, hand-drawn posters announcing the week's best sales and discounts. While parents were busy calculating their savings, children saw the entrance as a gateway to a miniature, magical playground. The coin-operated horses standing guard near the door became universal symbols of pure childhood happiness. The tinny, cheerful music from the aging machine and the steady, hypnotic rhythm of the horse's gallop created an irresistible draw for any kid with a spare penny. Sitting alongside those mechanical horses were the gumball machines, where spheres of bright red, blue, and green gum sat like hidden jewels behind a glass globe. Getting a single penny from a parent to turn that heavy metal crank and hear the gumball plink into the metal tray was a priceless reward for a child who had behaved well during the long shopping trip. These simple, low-tech attractions acted as a bridge, making the errand of grocery shopping feel less like work and more like an anticipated outing for the whole family. They fostered a positive psychological connection with the store, turning a routine task into a collection of happy, small-scale memories. Comics and toys. For any child tagging along on a grocery run, The most highly anticipated destination in the entire store was undoubtedly the rotating comic book rack and the small neighboring toy section. Usually tucked into a visible corner, the tall wire rack was filled with the latest adventures of Archie, Superman, or Batman, their colorful covers acting as a siren song for curious young hands. There was a unique, tactile joy in giving that metal rack a gentle spin, hearing its characteristic creak, and searching with bated breath for the newest issue. It was a simple analog pleasure that no modern tablet or digital screen could ever hope to replicate. Right next to the comics was a selection of inexpensive but high-impact toys, things like bright plastic trucks, tiny dolls, or basic fishing kits. Even though while many of these items were dime store quality, perhaps a wheel would pop off or the paint might flake after a few days of hard play, their value in the eyes of a child was immeasurable. The desperate hope for a parent's yes when asking for one of these small toys was a foundational part of the shopping experience for earlier generations. Last-minute essentials and paper bags. Just before reaching the register, almost every family would reach for one final essential item kept near the checkout: the newest issue of the TV Guide. In an age when the television was the undisputed center of the American home, this thin, weekly magazine served as the entertainment map for the next 7 days. Families would take it home, flip through the pages, and carefully mark the shows they wanted to watch together in the evenings. It wasn't just a magazine, it was the final, satisfying piece of the weekly shopping puzzle that helped organize the family's leisure time. When it came time to pack up the week's groceries, the classic brown paper bag reigned supreme. Back then, the modern debate between paper or plastic didn't even exist, as sturdy paper was the only and arguably best option available. These bags were strong and could stand upright on their own, making the process of unpacking the car and organizing the pantry much simpler. The scent of fresh paper mixed with the various aromas of the groceries inside created a feeling of cleanliness and security. Once home, these bags were never just thrown away. They were carefully smoothed out and tucked into a kitchen drawer to be reused as trash can liners or to wrap a child's school textbooks. It was a natural, effortless habit of thrift that gave every object a much longer and more useful life. The human checkout experience. As you approached the checkout counter with a full cart, you entered a space where human interaction was still the most important part of the service. Cashiers in those days possessed incredible manual dexterity, their fingers flying over the large, tactile buttons of a massive mechanical cash register. Instead of the repetitive beep of a barcode scanner, the air was filled with the rhythmic clack-clack of moving gears and the bright ding of the cash drawer popping open. Every item and its price were often read aloud by the cashier, ensuring a level of transparency and trust that felt very personal. Friendly conversation and sincere questions about your family or your job were the norm, making the short wait feel like a pleasant social catch-up. Working alongside the cashier were often young, energetic baggers who took great pride in scientifically arranging your groceries so nothing would get crushed. After the transaction was complete, they would often assist you by wheeling the cart to your car and helpfully loading the bags into your trunk. A small tip and a sincere thank you were the standard ways shoppers showed their appreciation for this hard work. There were no cold, impersonal self-checkout kiosks. Only smiles, real conversations, and the unmistakable feeling of being treated with genuine care and respect. Coupons, cash, and old-school payments. The final stage of the grocery trip involved payment methods that were deeply rooted in the physical habits of the time. That before the era of contactless payments or ubiquitous debit cards, almost every transaction was handled with cash or a carefully handwritten personal check. For those who did use a credit card, the process was a rhythmic, mechanical one, involving a manual imprinter, affectionately known as the click-clack machine. The cashier would place your card and a carbon paper receipt into the machine and slide the handle across with a loud, distinct racket sound. This physical dunk confirmed that your transaction was secure, providing a tactile confirmation that simply doesn't exist with today's digital swipes. Alongside the cash and checks, housewives were often seen carrying thick stacks of coupons that they had meticulously clipped from Sunday newspapers or women's magazines. These coupons were organized with precision in small, dedicated purses, categorized by product type. Handing over that stack of paper to the cashier and watching the total drop by a few cents or like $1 brought a genuine sense of a small victory. Even as the decades roll by and the world continues to change, that warm feeling of the old-school shopping trip remains a precious part of our history. What detail from those old trips do you find yourself missing the most today? We'd love for you to share your own stories in the comments below. Thank you for taking this walk down memory lane with us.